Okay, so today I'm excited to get started. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about is the idea of the app first, and that is, why am I building a dating app to begin with? And the whole reason for it is, I've heard several people, and I've thought about it myself, say the idea of like, why isn't there an Omegle for dating? And so that kind of was what sparked the idea. I've also heard later on Tim Ferriss say that. I've heard Chris Williamson say that, of the Modern Wisdom podcast. And it just got me thinking, like, well, why isn't there a dating app like that? And I feel like those two are pretty good. At least Tim Ferriss, I have the understanding that he's pretty good at coming up with ideas. And to me, when I heard that idea, that was one idea that I was like, that seems like a good thing. But then you'd think, why am I building a voice-based app and not a video-based app? And the reason for this was that I was thinking through it, and I don't really know what the best idea is here. To be honest with you, I have no idea if the better option is actually to have video, or if the better option is to just go with voice. But the idea with the voice thing is that, to me, it strikes like a happy medium between texting, which is very anonymous and very like low stakes and low effort, and the immediacy, or the what would you even call that? The high agency, is that the word for it? I don't know. The impact of basically video, like FaceTiming with a random person. So the way that I've thought through this, and the reason that I landed on voice instead of video is that I think I'm very slow at getting to the point with this, but the reason that I landed on audio or voice instead of video is that I think that video will be a little bit too personal. Like, it will be too revealing to go on video. It'd be too much of an effort to have as well. So I think one thing that has made dating apps so incredibly popular is that it's very low stakes, and it's very low, like, you don't have to put too much of yourself actually out there. Like, you can put the best picture you can find of yourself out there, and you don't even have to write anything. Like on Tinder and things like that, you don't have to write anything about yourself. You can just put the pictures up and your name, and then you're off to the races. With other dating apps, you might have to put more pictures up. You have to like put in prompts, things like that. But it's still very heavily reliant on you basically being able to do it without putting in effort. Like, you can text whenever you have time. If you're on the bathroom, you can text or respond to messages. If you'd be so lucky to get any matches, that is. But it also means that you have this, or you kind of get into this very, like, yes, people, you don't have to put that much effort into it, which I think is what makes it very popular, because it's not very scary. Like, yeah, I sent a message to someone and they didn't respond. It doesn't feel too bad when I get that rejection or whatever. And you can sort of dismiss it on the premise of like, well, maybe they didn't see my message or whatever. So it doesn't hurt that much. Well, if you take the opposite, take it to the opposite spectrum, and you consider a dating app that would be like Omegle, then what you end up with is, I think one of the reasons that Omegle is very, or has been very popular, I don't even know if it exists, to be honest, anymore, but one of the reasons that it was or is or whatever popular is, I think, actually I shouldn't say, I'm just making this up now, but I think one of the reasons is that it has the sort of allure of a dating place, while at the same time not exclusively stating that it is a dating site, if that makes sense. So like, you can go on there and there's the thrill of like, you don't know what you're gonna get matched up with, if it's gonna be a guy, if it's gonna be a girl or whatever. You don't know. You don't even know the age, you don't know nothing. It's just random people, which means that you can kind of go on it. And even if someone would ask you later on, you don't have to lie about, well, I've never been on there, because by saying that you've been on there, you don't actually reveal that you're looking for someone. So Omegle is not actually a place where you, I think at least, I don't think it's a place where you go to date. But I think many people have in the back of their minds the idea of like, what if I find someone that's really cute that likes me back and that is like in my area or whatever. I think that is part of the appeal with it. If I'm honest, I think that's a big part of the appeal. I'm saying this never having used Omegle, so I don't know. Maybe there's other things that are appealing with it. And maybe I'm just like looking at it in a weird way where the only outcome I can see of it is finding someone or whatever. But I think that's a lot of people that are using it are thinking that, or looking for some sort of like validation, maybe. Either way, whatever reason that you're using it for, if you put the staple on it and say that this is actually a dating site now, and you go on here to find someone, then all of a sudden the stakes are raised, because now you're not just like casually scrolling through people, you're not really putting effort into it, you're not investing anything, and you're not risking anything either, because if someone skips you, you weren't looking to date that person anyway, so it doesn't matter if they skip you, it was just a random person. But if you're looking to date and you go on there and someone skips you that you wanted to talk to, then you've already put some sort of investment into it, where you're like, well, I actually thought that person was cute and I wanted to talk to them, but they skipped me or they left the conversation. That would then, I think, hurt a little bit, which I don't know. I think there's a lot of when you're building stuff like this, I think there's value to considering subconscious, for lack of better words, like manifestations. So if you go on to Omegle, you're subconsciously, wait, is this the way that I think about it? If you go on to Omegle, you subconsciously might be looking for someone, like might have the hope of like, maybe I find someone on here. But it's subconscious. So you're not actually maybe fully even aware that that's what you're doing or that's what's drawing you into it. Whereas with a dating app, that subconscious thing becomes conscious. You're like, well, I'm now going here to find someone, which I think will make it sort of like, well, it adds something to the experience that kind of raises the stakes and makes it more delicate, I would say. So the idea then for me is that, well, okay, consider the idea that you'd have video in this dating app. So it's essentially Omegle, but it's just for dating. So the only people that you'll see will be people of the gender that you're interested in. So for me, it'd be the opposite gender. So I would only see girls, let's say. Well, if I'm sitting there and I know there's going to be video, then I can't just lazy use the app on my couch, not having showered, not getting ready. Like I'd actually have to sort of get ready for a date in a way. Maybe I feel like, okay, I want to be my most authentic self. So I'm not going to try to pretend to be something that I'm not. I'm not going to get too dressed up for this. But I think what would naturally happen is you would want to kind of look your best because that is what you're going to be presenting to this person. So even if, yes, at home on the couch, I might be wearing pajamas, I might not have showered or fixed my hair or done like shaved or whatever, it would make sense to still do that for a video-based dating app. And so what that means is you're increasing the amount of effort that people will need to go through in order to use the app. And if you compare that to something like Tinder, there's almost no effort needed there. You can, like I said, you can be on the toilet and you can be answering messages, and it just, there's no effort. You don't have to do anything. There's effort in like coming up with what you should respond, but really there's very little effort there. Like you can put a lot of effort into it, but there's no pressure to it, if that makes sense. Like you can delay answering that message for a day if you want to, and like think about what do I respond. There's still pressure, of course, but it's not the same as like being on a video call with someone is literally like going on a date in real life, which is higher effort, I think. So the problem that I see with video is that will people actually, like, I think people will be drawn into the idea of it, but will people actually use it? I don't know. But I think there's some value to the immediacy of the connection. So by immediacy, I just mean that instead of having the thing that I've talked about before, which is asynchronous conversation, which is what you have on every dating app out there, which is text-based. So I send you a message and then you respond whenever you have time, which means that you won't just instantly respond to me, which is what happens when we're on a phone call together or on a video call. We have a conversation, it's live, it's happening in the moment. If I say something to you, you just respond back. You can't take 2 hours to respond to me. You'll just be responding. And so the benefit of having that like immediacy in the interaction is that you can very quickly kind of figure out, is this a person that I'd be interested in actually meeting in real life or not? And compare that to the asynchronicity of conversations via Tinder or other dating apps, where you might not even like a 5-minute conversation with someone that's live, that might take you like a week or a month to do via the other dating apps. And so I think that's a real benefit of the live communication part. But I think that might be the largest benefit to changing the game, if that makes sense, if that's fair, in dating apps. Like adding video is a good idea, but it might just be too much effort. Whereas adding just voice, where you don't have video, allows you to get most of the benefits that you'd get from using other dating apps, where you could be on the phone while you're on the toilet if you'd want to. You could be on the phone while you haven't showered. You could be on the phone while you are in your pajamas. You could be laying on the couch. You could be going for a walk. You could be anywhere really, and just have a conversation with someone that's just audio based. And there's no pressure on you showing up in a certain way. And then if we also combine that with pictures of yourself, where you can actually select good pictures of yourself. So first you start talking to them, then they get to see pictures of you, and you've already selected like this. These are good pictures of me, because we all know that if you're on FaceTime, it's not the best, not the most flattering of looks. So I think that's also like there's people that you'd see maybe on FaceTime or on FaceTime, and you would think that you wouldn't be attracted to them in real life, but then you meet them in real life and you would be. So I think FaceTime is sort of a bad, it's sort of set up to make you not look your best, if that makes sense. By combining then audio, so the immediacy of the interaction with live communication via audio, with the ability to present your best self in terms of good pictures of yourself, then I think we have like a really good basis for a dating app, because we speed up the amount, or we reduce the amount of time that it will take from a like connection with someone to actually figuring out, is this someone that I want to date or not? But we still keep the effort low enough that you can sort of do it anywhere, if that makes sense. So long story short, or long story long, that's what I've been thinking about, and that's why I decided to not do video and instead focus on audio. But here's the catch with this, is that, and I've talked about this before, is like, it's very hard to tell the difference between, let me just figure out how to phrase this. Okay, I'm trying to remember, because I know I had like a really good short way to put this, but I forgot it. But the way that I'm going to put it is, it's really hard to tell the difference between a idea that sounds good and an idea that is good, if that makes sense. Like, and that's why people will invest in ideas that turn out not to be good. Like, yes, it sounds great. I think my arguments here, my logic behind using audio instead of video, or not allowing video and just using audio, I think the logic behind it is great, and it makes it sound like a great idea. But the hard thing is knowing, like, is it actually a good idea, or would video really be what people want to use? Like, maybe that's like the biggest mistake that I'm making, is removing video. Maybe it's the best thing that I'm doing, that I removed video, because I allowed for all these things that logically make sense to me. But I haven't really come up with a way to figure this sort of stuff out beforehand, if that makes sense. Like, it's very easy to think of like, well, this would make sense for people to use, and then to realize what people would actually use, if that makes sense. Like, there are so many apps, so many examples of software or products that have been built for a specific purpose that then ended up being used for something completely different. So again, typical example, YouTube. YouTube was meant to be a dating app, turned out to be whatever it is now, which is just a YouTube or content platform. It's nothing like a dating app. You'd never go to YouTube to date, but that was the original intent behind it. And it was probably a great idea. Like what their plan was probably really, really good, and it probably made logical sense. But then people didn't use it in that way, or whatever happened, it turned out to be a completely different thing. So that's where I really haven't been able to personally figure out how to solve that equation. Like, how do you figure out what is a good idea versus what sounds like a good idea? I'll try to think of a good way to put that, like an idea paradox, something that would help describe it. But either way, we're going to get back to work now. And I mean, let me know what you think in the comments. I read all the comments. So genuinely super interested in hearing what you think of the idea of like removing video versus keeping it or adding it. It would have to be added now, because right now it's completely based on the audio only concept, but it's possible to add that in the future. I guess it's one of those things that we could start out with just audio and see if people like it or not. It's probably, the problem with it though is that a dating app needs people. So it's like a game or something I could launch, and we could have like 10 users, and I could still get really valuable feedback from that. But a dating app, I feel like it's hard to launch it with 10 users and get valuable feedback, because it's just 10 users, and most likely it's not even like, and the problem is even harder than that, because I don't just need 10 random people. I need a very specific group of 10 people. So I need, ideally, let's say for simplicity's sake, that most of these people are going to be heterosexual. So in that case, or whatever sexuality they have, we need 2 of each sexuality, if that makes sense, and for them to match. So if it's a hetero guy, we need a hetero girl to match with that person. So we might get 5 people, but if we have 1 gay guy, 1 gay girl, 1 straight guy, 1 straight guy, and then 1 straight girl, then we have lots of people. We have 5 people, but most of them cannot be matched with each other. And that's a problem, because I don't really know how many users you need to get to like escape velocity with a dating app. But it also means that if the original idea of just voice is not good, then we need to keep every single user that we get somehow. But how do you keep a user on a dating app when they have no one to date? That's a problem. And there are solutions, but I don't know what they are right now. Okay, let's get back to work. So one thing that I found last time is that hours seem incorrect on the restrictions. So we're gonna have to run the app again. Okay, so it is 10:33 a.m. here right now, and it says that the time restriction will last for 15 hours and 27 minutes. But that is not correct. It should be 12 hours from now, it will be 10 p.m. Then we'll add 2 hours to that and it'll be 12:30 p.m. So 12 hours from now. No, wait, 14 hours from now, but minus about 30 minutes. So it should be something like 13 hours and 30 minutes. But it says 15 hours and 26 minutes. So we need to check why it does that. And we'll just continue the Claude chat from yesterday. Okay, some of this stuff gets really quite complex. So I'm going to read through the workflow here. If user A goes to the talk page and presses, okay, well, actually, I can show you this. So here's how the restrictions should work. If this user goes to the talk page and presses start connection, and then this user also goes to the talk page and presses start connection, and they get matched in a phone call, which they should probably not have been now, but anyway, if they get matched in a phone call like this and randomly without being actually matched, then if they decide to match with each other, or if they just leave the conversation, whatever they do, when they leave this conversation, they should no longer be allowed to, okay, so there's some sort of bug that happens here. Don't really know what it is, but something gets fucked up. Okay, I'm not sure what happens, but anyway, if they go and they randomly get selected into a call together and then they end the call for whatever reason, they should then be added into a restriction so that they are not randomly matched again within 24 hours. The reason for this is that we don't want two users to just constantly over and over be matched together, phone call after phone call, because ideally you want to end up talking to someone else. Now, if there are no users, then that would make no difference because you maybe just allow the users to talk as much as they want. But if we're thinking about this as there are lots of users, then you don't want to be just over and over again matched with someone that you don't want to talk to, let's say. So that is one restriction. That restriction should just apply to this page. Then we have the second restriction, which is if you both liked each other, then you match, and then you go to your matches page. If you go to your matches page, then you should have no restriction here yet, because the idea being that if we talk randomly and then we match, we should be allowed to straight away just call each other again, because I think that's kind of a good way to increase the probability that this connection will actually turn into a real life date. So that's the idea. You get to talk again straight away after. But right now we're already setting a restriction here based on the call that happened here. So that's one thing. The second thing is if you do decide to call them again straight away after, then let me just adjust this. Then you should also be allowed to talk again for like 5 minutes. And when that time is up, you should enter into a new restriction that's limited to this particular page only, which is where you can't specifically decide to call that person again until the next day. But if, let's say, that this page's time restriction runs out before this page's time restriction, then it's fair game. You should be allowed to randomly be matched into a call with someone that you already have matched with and that you already have a restriction with. So that those two are going to play parallel games with each other, if that makes sense, those two restrictions. And the idea being that, well, the idea being that it could be possible that you could get more than one call per day for this person, but you'd have to randomly be matched with them, which could increase your desire or could be a motivation to go onto the start connection page, which I think is a good idea. So yeah, that's how it should work. But right now it doesn't work that way. Right now, if we have this restriction here and then we go here and we end up in a phone call together again, then we actually, okay, something is freaking wrong with that. I don't know what it is, but something's up. Error in user state handler. All right, let's see what happens. We're going to try it again. And hopefully what we would expect now, I will tell you. So what we expect is this, no restriction on the phone call here. And we'll go to the talk page for both users. We'll start a connection. They get connected together. Now, what we expect is when we press leave, both phone calls should end and there should be no errors. Yep, that's what happens. And what should happen now is there should, on the backend side, exist a restriction, which should mean that if we press start connection again, they should not get connected into a phone call, which it seems like they don't. So that's good. Seems like that probably works. This is what was not supposed to happen. But there was not supposed to be a restriction on the front end here, but there is a restriction. So, or on the matches page, there should not be a restriction. So we're going to have to go and see if we can fix that. Call restriction. Random. I think this should be a pretty easy fix because it's just essentially we just need to check what we're reading from the backend, which we're already doing. We're checking the backend to see if there is a restriction, and what we need to do basically is just add another check to that existing check. So we need to check, is there a restriction, and does that restriction say that it's a direct restriction, which is what symbolizes if it is a restriction for the matches page, like a direct call versus a random call on the random page. And if it is, then we should show this. But if it's a random restriction, then we should do nothing. So essentially here, the key changes I made, check restriction, restriction type equal direct. So I think basically the thing that it added is this. Check that this restriction type is direct. And if that's the case, then it does what we want. So now we've saved it, and if we go and run it again, we should have no restriction there anymore, which we don't, and that's perfect. So we're going to run this again, but we're going to remove the restriction that does exist because we want to test the full flow just to make sure that everything works. All right, let's start a connection. Hopefully they get selected together, which they do. Let's leave the call. Should leave this call as well. But it does not. Why doesn't it leave that call? Interesting. Okay, I don't know why that happened, but it did. But we're going to test now a regular call and see if that will work. Test is calling, accept, get sorted into a phone call, end the phone call, both end. Ah, my God, why? We don't get a restriction. That is probably because the initiate call does not do what we want. Error, creating direct call. All right, now should it work? I don't know. We're going to try it again at least. And hopefully it will work. Okay, start a connection. Start a connection. Get connected. Leave. Okay, start a connection again. They don't get connected into the phone call, which is good. Check here, no restriction, that's good. Do a call, accept, end the call, matches page, restriction. Okay, now it seems like the restrictions work. Okay, don't rematch users, still work. This works now. The minutes sometimes count down weirdly. Test that to figure out. Don't match users with someone disliked them. Okay, so there's report feature. And the minutes don't always count down the right way. So for some reason here it'll say 26. Well, I did notice somewhere in the code here that, or in the app, that the minutes will sometimes do a bit like some weird things. So we need to make sure that doesn't happen. But then it's that, and it's don't match users who disliked them. That also needs to be added, but it's essentially just two things. Report feature might be good too. So as I see it right now, it's 3 things left. These are the main 3 things that we need to get done. And then it is done, I think. I would like a cleaner look for the phone calls. So, or a cleaner way to skip someone or like go to the next person. Because right now the only way is to press leave. And if you press leave, you end up out here again, which really shouldn't happen. What should happen is when you press leave, you should end up on this page again. So waiting for someone to connect to. So that's something that we might want to add. It's hard to know, like, when is it going to be good enough to be an MVP? Like, is that next feature, is that really necessary? Like, the app does do the thing that we want right now. So do we really need that thing, or is that just kind of nice to have in the future? I don't know, but I'm going to try to think of that in the next video. Because right now I actually have to stop and start editing this video so that we are on schedule with everything. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you in the next one on Friday.